Hey everyone, and welcome to Generative Now. I am Michael Mignano. I am a partner at Lightspeed. Now, there are great generative AI models, and then there are great products built with these models that ultimately deliver value to customers and users. And this week, I talked to the founder and CEO of a company that's delivering a ton of value. It's Matthieu Rouif, co-founder and CEO of Photoroom, a photo editor that uses generative AI technology that can alter everything from an image's background to a subject's shadows, making this the perfect tool for many small business owners and solopreneurs who are selling their products online. Matt and I talk about all the lessons he's learned as the founder of multiple startups, finding product market fit early, and the unconventional way in which he's discovered what's really valuable to customers. So enjoy this conversation I had with Matthieu Rouif, co-founder and CEO of Photoroom. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Michael.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Thanks for doing this.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. So there's so much I want to get into. Photoroom has been one of these amazing AI success stories, right? Like there's so much talk about AI, about generative AI across enterprise, across consumer, large language models, photo models, video models, music models, but like there haven't been that many success stories yet in terms of actual products. Like for as much hype as the category has gotten, there's probably only a handful of actual products that have really broken out and performed really, really well over a sustained period of time. And Photoroom is one of them. Like no doubt, hands down, you've had a ton of success with Photoroom. And I want to get into it. There's so much to discuss with it. But I think we should start with your background because it's really interesting. You've been building in the App Store and for the Google Play Store for kind of a long time.
Right. So I'm an engineer by training. I actually moved to the US to do my master at Stanford, and that was like 15 years ago. And basically, I had a good science, math training, which matches with AI. But I wanted to, at that point already, I wanted to start a photo business. So that's a long story. It started early.
Why photos?
I like the technical part. I like arts and visual arts, so I've done a lot of drawing. I do that on my side, on the side. I spend a lot of time on photography, and I like memories. I was building a ton of photo memories with books before, I think. And I wanted to I wanted to print. We wanted to print like postcards and photos from travel. Back then with my back then co-founder, and so I came to Stanford with this idea of photo business. We're already having budget for printers, screens, digital screens, and all that. And well, it was 28, and there was the first iPhone class. And I mean, for a graduate student, it was so much. An engineer on top of that, it was so much more interesting to get into like, okay, I'm going to program a little app that does photo editing than negotiating contracts to print and install in some places in the world printers. And that's how I got into, photo first and mobile apps in the very early days. I actually remember a friend of mine, like back then, 28, saying like, oh yeah, the early days of apps, that apps are all over, everything has been done. It was 6 months in. So to tell you how, like, it was not obvious at that time that there were a lot of things coming with the app, but it was just fun for me to build software this way. And basically that's how I got into mobile photo and connecting, I think already arts and science. That's the thing that I love. And really, very creative craft, I think, and how do you connect them to create something that's useful?
I totally know what you mean about building mobile apps versus other types of software. So I was also I was a computer science major, and first few years out of school, it was I was totally bored. I'm like programming these systems and these applications for things that I didn't even know what they did. And then, like you said, when the App Store comes out, all of a sudden it's just a whole new lens. Before Photoroom, you worked on a bunch of different apps.
Yeah.
Talk to us about some of your early experiences.
I got into the App Store and iPhone development on campus at Stanford. I started my first company around, I wanted to do photo, but we pivoted and we did like a bunch of ski resorts apps. So we had like a lot of apps for ski resort that we would sell to ski resorts all over the world. And yeah, that was quite successful for 22 years old. After 1 year, I sold the company. So
Wow.
great experience. A great way to get started into entrepreneurships and mobile apps. And then I started another company around social survey on mobile apps, HeyCrowd, that you would vote on questions. It was quite. We did that for 3 years, I was missing a bit, I think, the visual part. So came back to. I joined another startup in 2014 that was editing the Replay app. It's a video editor. Doing like your photo video memories from traveling. So back to my first love on photography, traveling around the world, and they're this amazing tech and just pushing it after web to mobile. And so I joined the team, and it was quite successful. We were like on stage for the keynote app of the year
Oh, wow.
on Apple, also app of the year with Google. Yeah, we were the first to do like use AI to kind of make this video memories, stories of you automatically. Like kind of you're in the director seat and not the editor seat already 10 years ago. And yeah, it was really an amazing time using like the beginning of AI. I mean, at least on device. And so it was very successful, and GoPro bought us in 2016, and I became in charge of the photo video apps at GoPro for 2 years.
That's incredible. I mean, early in your career, you've now already sold or been a part of 2 teams that have gotten acquired. I mean, what's that experience like?
Yeah, I think it teaches you a lot. I mean, first financially, like it changed your approach to a lot of things, to risk. I mean, you do believe in the story and that it's possible. I also think it makes you value a lot, like what was special in a culture, because culture of a startup is not like it's not always concrete. It's difficult to like materialize it. It exists when you join. That's why it feels special, but it's not always clear. And then when you when you join another company, it's with the acquisition, it's another culture. So it's interesting to see how the two collide, if it's working well. So that's been a very interesting experience. GoPro is it's amazing brand, and tons of like a huge fan base, so very interesting. But it's very different culture, like with a strong brand and marketing and doing hardware. And it's not the same way as you do for software, where you ship fast and you try things, and it makes you realize things that work and things that don't, that you were not really aware of. I think that's a big learning for me.
What do you mean by that? Things that work and things that don't at like the bigger company. What do you mean by that?
No, I mean, I think what we did is like in software, you often you can ship a lot of stuff, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's not a big deal. And when you are a GoPro, you can't ship things that don't work, and same with a brand. And so you realize that it's a strength of a small startup to be able to try things and have some forgiveness. You're not good losing a lot when you're shipping something new that might not work, and so it's one of the assets of startups that we tend to underestimate, and that's a big learning.
Totally. Yeah, you can take more risk, right? Like maybe it's because, like you said, maybe there's more forgiveness from the users or the general public because they know you're a startup, they know it's early, or yeah, you can definitely try things at a smaller company that you can't really at a big company, because you could really disrupt the financials of the business if you ship something that's broken, or you damage the brand or something. So it's so true. Like being able to take those types of risks, both, I think, per your point earlier, if you've already maybe had an acquisition, can take more personal risk, and being at a startup where it's young, take some risk on the business side. It's like a really, really powerful combination for doing special things. What was it like integrating at a much bigger company? It's also, wasn't your company that was being acquired. What was that integration like? Was it painful? Was it easy?
Yeah, a bunch of people didn't stay on the long term, so I don't think it was. I mean, the app is great, but it's sad to see that a few things, like because there are bigger projects, kind of collapse and people leave because they were in love with the small team and not in the big team. So you realize that sometimes it doesn't take a lot for like, to have like a bunch of people leaving. I think here.
Yeah, per your point earlier about like the culture of a startup, that experience, the acquisition, the integration, like it really highlights just how fragile and how special that is, and how like quickly it can go away, right? If the culture changes.
Yeah.
Well, that acquisition, I believe, turned out to be really important for your career, because I think Photoroom ultimately came from that experience. So tell us a little bit about the journey through GoPro to starting Photoroom.
Yeah, I mean, the inception for me of the idea of Photoroom comes from, we were still like very independent, and I was in charge of the apps. And I think as a PM, you need like, I mean, you always need to tell the story of the product internally, externally. And really, I became frustrated. I remember this day of trying to build an asset, and my designer wasn't here. And so the US are sleeping, and you need to promote that for tonight or next day morning. I just picked Photoshop, and I had this exact story I wanted to build in mind. And I mean, I've been using Photoshop for 15 years. So, and I'm reasonably good with computers. You know, I'm a developer. I build designs. I'm a builder, I think. And I became very frustrated like by this experience of spending the afternoon, and especially spending time on non-creative tasks that, I mean, you shouldn't be spending time on. And at the same time, like we had the good AI lab at GoPro in Paris, and I could see the paper they were working on. It was 2016, and you start to have like good detection paper, good segmentation paper, and you can only use it as a scientist, where you go on this this special code, and you need to run the code by itself, and it doesn't make any sense to have like this non-generative task for like the mass audience, and only the scientists that can use all this amazing AI back then. So that's the inception where I say like, okay, we need to make editing photo more accessible. Programming got easier with no code. Editing photo should be simpler now because we can understand what's in an image, and that's how the idea of Photoroom started.
There obviously, you know, hope you don't mind me saying this, like there's so many photo editing apps out there. You and I have talked about this before. I used to work on a photo editing app long time ago, Aviary. Even back then, so many photo editing apps. How do you stand out? Like when you decide, hey, we're going to start a new photo editing app, like how, I guess it's this feature, it's the AI, it's the machine learning you were talking about, really, that was able to make Photoroom stand out from all the others.
We came with kind of this unique approach of, you should be able to, I mean, one of the non-creative tasks is like removing background, and there were good papers back then, and the state of the art started to be very good, but on the web. And I think like most people, like people tend to underestimate, especially developers, that most people are editing photos on their smartphone, and let's do the best photo editor and the best background remover as a starting point from on mobile. And that's where we got started. And so very good quality on this feature, background remover. And then so that's like a first approach, and be the best at it, be fast, be very good at the algorithm, understand there is demand for that. So I knew there were a lot of people searching for that on the App Store from being in the app ecosystem for 10 years. And so I think you can crack it and be innovative when you come with this unique feature that's important to people. I mean, from that, you can build like a sizable business. And I think the extra part that brings us after that to what's next and why Photoroom is very, very big now and very successful is that fundamentally, and in the AI space, people knew it, like removing background is a task that's called segmentation. And segmentation is basically parsing photos. So what you need to be the best at this task is understanding what every pixel of photo is, and understanding what's in this photo, what's silent, what people are focusing on. And at the same time, you're building something that's very valuable as a feature only company, but you also have many adjacent possibilities because you're understanding better than anyone on market, any other photo editor, what's in the photo, and you can build so much from that. And that was kind of a bet, but we were confident it would make sense in the long run.
So my takeaway from that is so many people on mobile at the time were just focused on like really basic stuff, right? Applying a filter, maybe, messing with the saturation, messing with the like very, very basic sort of single double tap sort of things. Whereas on the desktop with programs like Photoshop and Lightroom, people are getting into more professional style work, but nobody was really doing, the stuff that was really hard to do on mobile, but maybe easier to do on desktop on the mobile phone. But as you said, like it was pretty clear to you that there was demand. So it was like, hey, let's just nail this feature, segmentation, something you can't really do on a phone, and we're gonna base the product on that, at least initially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really smart.
And you do have like tons of like, the question for a product manager is like, do you have depth on that? So are they tons of creatives that like by removing background, like segmenting, that you can build that are unique and more accessible than all the other photo editor out there? And you go in the street, like you look at the ads, you look at the marketing assets, you look at many things. Like it's so common to to be able like to segment an object because you tell a story for many objects, and it's everywhere. So if that's at the top layer of your product, then there's going to be a lot of depth on the templates, the features that you're going to put forth to all the users. And this is going to be like so much easier in Photoroom than in any other photo editor because it's like you start by that. Like in Photoroom, you import a photo, we segment it, so we remove the background, and you start from the object and not from like the square of pixels. And that, well, maybe we're not going to be the best at like 100% of what you do, but for 20%, 10% of all the possibilities, we make you one step closer to make something amazing. And that's good enough on a vertical photo editing that's like concerning 5 billion people.
Yeah. So what were some of those first use cases that you saw that maybe proved that you really did have depth to this feature, right? Like I'm sure, like you said, you see segmentation everywhere, but in Photoroom, like what were the ways people were using it to start where you're like, oh wow, we really have something here. Maybe we found product market fit.
Yeah. So we something we did very well that comes from the Zenly teams, team in Paris, is we would go to McDonald's and interview. So we'd go in the line, we would pay for a meal. In exchange, they were ordering in exchange for like answering 5-6 questions on what their photo editing habits and testing the app. So it helped us remove a lot of like friction in the onboarding and create an amazing onboarding experience. Make sure people get to understand why Photoroom is special, but it also got us like tons of ideas of what we can do that's special. A few things that resonated with the user in these interviews were, for instance, ID photo, passport, YouTube cover, YouTube thumbnail. But the biggest one by far was reselling on marketplaces. So the Poshmark, Depop, eBay of the world, where, well, some of them actually require a white background that you do by background removal. And that's where we found product market fit in early 2020, just before COVID. We started to have Gary Vee and other like eBay influencer that talked about us, did YouTube videos about us because, well, not of eBay sellers were hustling. They were doing like photos on the spot and they needed an app to go faster here because for them, time is money. And we were saving so much time for them. The quality of the algorithm was much better than what was out there on competition. And so that's where product market fit started.
And did you learn that in McDonald's? Like you learned about the reselling need just by talking to users in McDonald's, or did you already have that as a hypothesis?
It's a good question. No, I think like product market fit is a bunch of things. But I definitely remember this user telling us like, my girlfriend would kill for an app like this to sell on Depop. And one thing we did very early, like we shipped the first version of the app after 2 weeks of programming, and we put payment right there in the app subscription right in the beginning. And we listened a lot more to people paying than people not paying, and we realized like a lot of people were coming back to us paying and asking about like commerce, reselling features, eBay integration. So this part helped us a lot. And so this is like, I think it's a mix of things. We also did a product market fit survey where it was clear that like some people would really miss the app. They would be very frustrated. So a bunch of things, but I definitely remember this Depop interview in McDonald's.
So you're at product market fit. You find all these use cases in this depth of product segmentation. Where do you go from there?
Right. So that's 2020 February. Basically, 1 month later, COVID hit, and that's, I think, I mean, startup and successful startup in particular, you have like also timing and luck is a big part of it. So while COVID was very tough personally and with the kids and all of that, for Photoroom it meant like everyone needs to sell online because you can't. Well, first you can't take photos with photographer because you can't get contact. And then you need to go online because no one is going in physical store anymore. So that's like massive growth. We did YC remotely 2 months later, and really we got to 1 million in ARR very fast, like in the first year of Photoroom story. So that amazing growth with YC, COVID, and hitting product market fit in 1 year.
And talk a little bit about the algorithm for doing the segmentation. Like, what were you doing back then on, like, technically speaking, and maybe compare that to what's happening today on the imaging side? Obviously, there's been so much innovation in terms of image models just over the past year or two. So maybe like explain to us what you were doing back then compared to today, and maybe how have you changed as a result?
Yeah, so I think our approach is really talking to user, as I said, and I remember this like I mean the way we pitched, but Photoroom is special because we do useful machine learning, and that was our pitch before GenAI or anything. But I think it's still very true today. Like we do useful machine learning in the sense that we talk to user and try to understand how the AI is helping them more than like starting from what's possible from the tech, and we just like try to be the best and use AI to fix the problem as best as possible. And so, how do you do useful machine learning? We start from open source because we want to understand what's the pain from user. And well, the design school I did at Stanford is like show don't tell. Like you want to show the AI to a user and understand what sticks with them. How did they project themselves? What's good? What's not good enough? Do you want to make it faster or more accurate? And you can't invent that. And certainly, if you're in a lab and trying to do the next general purpose AI, like you're not optimizing for that. So our strategy at Photoroom is we start from open source. We put that in the hands of user as fast as possible. Then we understand what are the pains and the blockers of this special architecture. And then we train our own model that's best on market for this specific use case. So today, Photoroom background remover, like our tech is best on market. You can use it in the app, in the API, but like any benchmark would tell you what the best on market. And that's because over time, we built data from our user participating and training a special architecture using open source to improve it, participating in open source sometimes, to really adapt to our user use case, which is, well, photo editing. So it's not like a self-driving cars. If you take some general purpose AI like SAM from like segment anything from some model from Meta, it's a segmentation model that's made for everything. It's for robotic, it's for self-driving cars, it's for software, it's for many different things, and it's not optimized for what the user wants. And that's I think the value and why the user in our case using software, what Photoroom does is so valuable. And so that's the background remover. Then we moved on to other AI. So obviously today Photoroom is much more than the background remover. It's a full photo editor with a lot of Gen AI features. And well, that's the second part of the story where we, after like being really good at a wide background, we started like thinking of what's next as a photo editor. And that's just where like what is now called Gen AI, but wasn't back then. We had the first DALL-E first version. We started playing and we realized, like, okay, sometimes what background or segmentation is not the best for users. They want like a visual story. So they want, so for jewelry, for cars, for furniture, they want something that tells the story of this object. And that's where we started investing in Gen AI. So that's like how we started investing in our Gen AI models.
So when you say tell the story of an object, are you referring specifically to the object in maybe the use case of reselling, of, hey, these sneakers, this purse, this bag, Let's give people Gen AI tools to help tell the story of this item, this product that somebody's going to sell. Is that specifically like the use case and surface area you think of, or you think of other types of objects and use cases as well?
No, I mean, our mission is to power commerce photography. So really we're thinking of, okay, you come with an object, and as a business, like you're showcasing, you're telling a story, you're telling the story of your product. And you tell the story with multiple things. Well, first, maybe even how you look as a seller is your profile pic, but also how do you put your object in situation. So sometimes you're you're showcasing in your shop, like in the physical store, you showcase in the window, and that's like you really want to have like you do lifestyle, you have story that people can project themselves, and there's the same on photos on the internet. And then there's when you go in the shop, you have like you have the full catalog, and then so here it's about like seeing the different features, zooming on the material. If you take the fashion, zooming on the product itself. So that's more like catalog listing. You want a white background, just want to focus on the product itself. So you really have like very different kind of photography you want to do for in the marketing life, in the marketing materials, and they're all different. But your scene that Gen AI enables is telling this story, and that's what what we started doing with Gen AI. Like the white background is great for a catalog and product listing, but then all the lifestyle photo are supposed to tell the story of what you're doing. If you're going for like sneakers, for instance, or you want to see them in the outdoor, so you want to see them in the mountain, how do you do that? And are you taking like a full crew in the Alps to shoot that, and you pay like 100K? Or are you doing that with Gen AI? And Gen AI enables so many things for that, and to try things, to start A/B testing the different stories you want to do.
What are some of the Gen AI kind of technologies or model approaches you need to build to unlock some of these features? I mean, are we talking things like in painting, out painting? Like how do you accomplish some of these things?
Yeah, so today we have a full set of Gen AI features. They come from our Photoroom instant diffusion model, so we train from scratch. And then from this model that's trained to do any photography, we do multiple things, AI backgrounds. So you start from an object and you generate a realistic scene that adapts to the light and the light and the shadows of the product. We have retouch feature where you use Gen AI to either erase an object from the photo or actually redraw, fill with a new object that you can specify. We have a AI resize feature where you can use any material. So you have a square image and you want to create a story. We just expand that to a new format. That's always a problem with stock photography or photos you have. Like they don't fully fill the space you have, or maybe you want to use it in multiple places and you don't have all the pixel you would need. And so we also have an AI shadow model. That's a specific model that's trained to create realistic shadow. And the value, it really gives volume to your product, but you can control the color of the background if you have a brand or you have a specific backdrop that you want to use for this one. So at the end of the day, it's like 5 different AI features that are used on top of our Photoroom instant diffusion model.
What you talked about earlier with starting with open source is really, really smart, because my interpretation of what you were saying was it basically allows you to test and validate hypotheses really, really quickly before training your own models or investing in your own technology. Will you even, with some of the features that you just mentioned, will you even do that in the actual production product to test things before investing in building your own tech?
We do test off the shelf if they are interesting. We have many different AI features that we put in either in beta internally to test them, or try with user and do user testing to understand what they would value in that. So we do test many different models to see what the user value. At the end of the day, the goal, it's a bit provocative, but I think there is value in owning the vertical stack. So because you can reinforce and use the user feedback to improve your model. But if the goal is to learn and improve your model, then you should like ship as fast as possible with what's off the shelf or open source to understand the user need and really build from that. So, and if it's not our tech, if it's valuable for the user, well, I mean, the number one priority for us is our users. So we build our own tech because we think it's what's going to bring the most value to our user. But if it's someone else's tech, we're fine using it.
I think that's a really, really smart lesson that other teams should follow for sure. The other thing I'm thinking of as you're telling me all these features is, by verticalizing all these features into a single app, Photoroom, there's probably just a tremendous amount of value you can unlock for your company and your product. But these features probably would also be really valuable in other products and other experiences as well. I believe you have an API. How did you land on the API? Like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it started as a hackathon, like many features, and we built like you get tons of idea from that. It's kind of hackathon at Photoroom, call them photo hack, or some of the best part of the year for us. But basically, we did a quick prototype and of the for background remover page and it used our API, and it started like this, and we realized, well, back to our doing useful AI, we understand that some people, they told us like, I don't want to download an app for that, like for white background, for instance, especially as we were talking to like marketplaces where for them the flow is super important, and we were super proud of our tech and the result, but they told us like, activation flow for a seller is just the single most important metric in the company, and I'm not going to block the user by telling them like, you need to download an app now. So
right,
that's kind of a disillusion, but we realized, okay, maybe it makes sense. And at the end of the day, we want to be ubiquitous, and we want to our users. So if they are not downloading the Photoroom app now, but we help them with our tech, it matches our mission. So let's start with the API. And it was kind of the side because it's difficult for a year or so. It's a bit difficult to like optimize for two metrics. But what happened with the API is we do support, everyone does support at Photoroom. And one day, Eliot, my co-founder, he was doing support, and someone was saying like, I would need the API, on the app support. I need the API for this project. Like, can you help me? And he helped them. They integrated very fast, and that's and they asked us like, "Are you sure you can handle a big load?" And yeah, sure. I mean, we have like millions of photos every day. It should be fine. And well, one day the server started to like hit a bit, and we just learned that they told us like, "Okay, we're launching the Barbie campaign. So are you sure you're ready?" And we did like 20 million, almost 20 million like users in 3 weeks with Barbie.
Oh my goodness.
And that's like at that point, they were actually, it was a partnership. They were using Photoroom logo there, and like big featuring and super successful. And that started like the API, and they just used us because they like tried a few API for that, and it was the best tech. So I guess, I think entrepreneurs should be a bit more deliberate in new product, but that was a bit of luck there. And we started doing Barbie. We work with Netflix for Black Mirror. We work with LVMH. So like, big brands for marketing, they started using Photoroom, and that was quite interesting. And also like other apps in GenAI where they didn't want to invest, but background removal was important. There's also starting to use Photoroom, like Printify, like Mojo, where they were an app with Shopify too. So it started to take off, and I think it makes sense. Like at the end, you don't want to, like, not everyone is going to download the app. Sometimes people have existing workflow and they want to do amazing photo, and they really want to scale the photo creation. And the API is great for that, and it's really taking off. So that's the new part of Photoroom after the mobile app and web app is the APIs, and it's starting to be very powerful. We have the background remover API that sits on top of our background, our segmentation tech, and now we have the Gen AI where you can reposition, relight, create an AI background, use the shadow. So it's a very complete endpoint where you can do anything with your photo, like edit with just a parameter. Very complete.
How do you weigh sort of the trade-offs of letting someone sort of have complete control over the experience in their own product versus trying to maybe leverage API integrations to drive usage back to, your own first party Photoroom app. Is that something you think about, or do you think about them as two distinct businesses and strategies?
So the API, I mean, what's important is it uses the same like AI models and the same rendering engine as the app. So it's like anything you do in the app, you can transform it in an API call. And I think what we've seen is like there are very similar needs at different scale, and it really they relate to each other because we specialize in product commerce, like marketing photography. So I think that's a very important like similarity to start with. We do have like a partnership plan in the API where basically it's not white label. You mentioned Photoroom, you link to Photoroom, and so it drives traffic to the app. So that's kind of the easy way. It's been quite successful. We did that with Netflix. We did that with Barbie. And people, yeah, it's more brand, but people start to use Photoroom from that. And then I think on the long run we can have deeper integrations where if the API doesn't work, you can open your edit like in Photoroom. So for 99% of the case, like your workflow is not broken, but for the 1% that doesn't work, you'll have more UX, because at the end of the day, an API is kind of a text box on top of a model. It can be more advanced, but you can't, I mean, it's difficult to edit photos with just, comments. And so if you want to go deeper, you want to move things around, you'll open the Photoroom app. And I think that's where, when you go back to the story of like Depop or Poshmark, they say, I'm like blocking the flow of my user. I'm not going to ask them to download an app. But maybe for 1% of the case where, well, they could have like a stunning, an image that stands out. If it's just 1%, it's not going to break their metrics. So I think that would make sense at the end of the day.
So Matt, obviously the business is doing really, really well. It's easy to see from the outside. But what are you really proud of? What are some of the recent highlights that you might want to share?
Yeah, it's been growing very fast. We reached 150 million downloads. And it's not only downloads, like we are like 30 million monthly active users. So it's a lot of people editing photos on Photoroom, and we're very proud of that. Big names, Barbie, Netflix, LVMH using the API. So business is thriving on top of the AI now.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You're based in Paris, the company, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Is everyone there, or is the team distributed, or how does it work?
We are a hybrid team. We were born in COVID, so everyone is working from Europe. We meet once a month in Paris in the Photoroom HQ. Otherwise, like, people can work from wherever they want in Europe. We have like 15 nationalities, and it's important because, well, Photoroom is number one photo editor in many countries in the world, and having like a lot of nationalities in Paris or in Europe is quite important. It's actually a little easier, I think, to get that in the Bay Area or New York than in Paris. So remote is helping us a lot for that.
One of the things I think I saw you tweet, which I found really, really interesting, especially knowing that you're a distributed team, you're not all in the same office, is you have a no DM policy on Slack. I think inspired by Stripe, you said. How do you make that work? That's got to be so hard, especially when people aren't in the office together, because people got to have one-on-one conversations. Maybe they're collaborating, working on a project. Like, how do you make it all work? And I'm sure it has like a really positive impact on the culture as well.
Yeah. I mean, before COVID, I was the video editor startup I was at. We had like some people remote, and I remember like having some people very frustrated that they did not have the full context of the office conversations. And as we started with COVID, and you start to learn from Stripe experience, and I had like good friends working at Stripe, you understand like having context is very important. It's the way to feel included in the company. And so being very transparent here, it matters a lot, especially as you're remote during COVID, because when you don't know and there are things that happen because of another conversation, people assume the worst. they feel like maybe it's because they don't want to work with me anymore, but it's just like you just go to the fastest sometimes. So being open by default is really like, it's about building trust. And I think building trust is the single most important thing when you're hiring new people. And when you do it remotely, it's quite challenging. So we started with this very open and transparent culture. And the other thing is we want to hire, like, we hire very senior people. And when you hire very senior people, it's for, well, you don't tell them what to do. It's a famous quote, like, they tell you what they want to do, but to do that and make good decisions, they need context. So to make local decisions, they need good context, and that's transparency. And it's all about being able to search. Like, you don't want to have to search something twice. You don't want, like, that was one of the, Gustav is a YC partner, and he was telling us all the time for our support, like, you don't want to answer and write something twice because you want to be impactful as a founder. But I think it's also true internally. You don't want to have to write something twice. And being open about that is maximizing people having context and making sure that the best opportunities happen because you have access to all the information, and from all the best information, if you have good people, they'll take the best decisions. So that's where we start from. It's quite challenging to maintain, especially as you grow, but I think it's very for the best, and people are joining for this culture of transparency.
What's going on in Paris? It feels like this. I haven't been in a couple of years, and it just feels like this amazing place for AI companies, both on the application layer as well, at the foundation layer. Like, talk to us about Paris. Why is it so special right now? I mean, it's obviously one of the world's great cities, but why is it so special for AI right now?
Yeah, I think the engineering school are quite good, like the UK or California, but it's very specialized in math, which I think is the first asset for AI, with a lot of matrices. And even if you do physics, economics, like, you just do math. That's it's a very annoying part of engineering in France, but turns out to be quite useful here. There are amazing labs started by Yann Lequin and for Meta, and the INRIA. There are other DeepMind, and Google now is a good lab. So a lot of labs in Paris with a lot of people doing their PhD here. And then the startup ecosystem has been 10 years in the making, and has reached escape velocity, where you can have very good AI engineers and a good startup ecosystem that's big enough. You have financing here. So I think that's all the conditions to reach escape velocity, and to be good enough as an ecosystem that you don't need to leave and go to the US to build an amazing company. And so, some people will do, but it's good to be kind of autonomous here and have enough talent to build amazing things. There's a lot of optimism also that's with the AI space and the momentum that is important at the startup level, but I think also as an ecosystem at the ecosystem level. GameFace is here too for the open source community, so it's quite important.
That's awesome. That's probably a great time to ask you, are you hiring either in Paris or elsewhere in Europe?
Yeah, we're doubling the team. So in the next year, and especially the AI team. So we released our foundation model Photoroom instant diffusion 2 months ago, and we're already preparing. We're already training the next steps, and the model needs to get better. The more you give to users, the more it's normal for them, and they're asking for new features. So we're really ramping up on the AI side and training a lot more now. So hiring all across Europe for now, and especially AI computer vision talent. We want to train a very powerful foundation model in a small team, and also scaling our B2B part with the API and also, actually, we didn't talk about it, but collaboration features where you can work together on AI designs.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for making the time today. This was awesome. I learned a ton. I'm sure the audience did as well. We got to do it again sometime.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thanks. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening to Generative Now. If you liked what you heard, please rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you'd like to learn more, follow Lightspeed at LightspeedVP on YouTube, Twitter/X, LinkedIn, and everywhere else. Generative Now is produced by Lightspeed in partnership with Pod People. I am Michael Mignano, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.